The Ripple Effect, 2025 and Beyond. Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display in her London investment firm's office, watching as markets responded to the first 100 days of the new American administration. As a global macro analyst, she'd spent years studying how U.S. political transitions influenced world events. The patterns are never quite what you expect, she mused to her colleague James. The data scrolling past showed familiar but sobering numbers. Global inflation had averaged 5.8% through 2024, with emerging markets hit particularly hard. The Federal Reserve's benchmark rate stood at 5.5%, while the ECB maintained its tight stance at 4%. The U.S. national debt had crossed $35 trillion. Against this backdrop, the new administration faced immediate challenges. The ongoing military aid discussions for Ukraine had stalled in Congress, while Taiwan's semiconductor industry watched nervously as regional tensions simmered. Global defense spending had reached record levels, with NATO members finally approaching their 2% GDP commitments. Remember when everyone thought monetary policy was boring? James chuckled darkly, pulling up charts showing energy prices. The transition toward renewable energy had accelerated, but fossil fuel dependence remained a critical factor in global inflation. Oil still traded above $80 per barrel, despite increased production from traditional suppliers. Sarah's research terminal pinged with another alert. Emerging market currencies were sliding again. The dollar's strength continued to pressure global debt payments, particularly in countries that had borrowed heavily during the low-interest rate era. It's all connected, Sarah explained to her new intern. U.S. policy shifts ripple through everything, from commodity prices to currency valuations, from trade relationships to military alliances. The intern nodded toward the screen showing refugee statistics. Climate events and regional conflicts had displaced millions, straining resources in host countries and reshaping labor markets. Turkey's inflation still hadn't fully recovered from its 2023 crisis, and several African nations were restructuring their Chinese infrastructure loans. As Sarah prepared her quarterly report, she reflected on how traditional economic models struggled to capture the complexity of this new era. The relationship between inflation, security, and political stability had become more intertwined than ever. The real question, she typed, isn't just about interest rates or fiscal policy anymore. It's about how nations navigate an increasingly multipolar world while managing domestic pressures. Her phone buzzed with news about another tech company laying off workers despite strong profits, a reminder that even amid macro-level changes, individual lives hung in the balance. The inequality gap had widened further, with real estate prices in major cities remaining out of reach for many despite higher interest rates. Down in the lobby, protesters gathered with signs about climate action and economic justice, scenes repeated in cities worldwide. The new administration's response to these interconnected challenges would shape not just American society, but the global order. As afternoon turned to evening in London, Sarah finished her report with a quote from a recent IMF paper. The world stands at a crossroads where economic policy, geopolitical strategy, and social cohesion are inseparable. The choices made in Washington will echo far beyond America's shores. Walking home through London's financial district, she passed the Bank of England's imposing facade. The classical architecture stood in stark contrast to the modern challenges it faced. Tomorrow would bring new data, new crises, new opportunities. The only certainty was change itself. Like, share, and subscribe for more interesting videos like this.